mostly just a test. So, hello, I see JD. What I can assume is JD. Probably. So I have like this lo-fi beat in the background playing. If it's too loud or it doesn't sound right, anyone can just like scream it out. That would be awesome. Because it's dope and I enjoy hearing it. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Hopefully, you guys can hear me in general too. This is all testing, JD. Let's pull up my stream on my phone and see what it looks like. Hmm. Okay, so you can't hear the background sound, but you hear me pretty well at least. Ooh, we have questions. Oh my gosh. All right. So I would say thank you guys for coming like right away. This is awesome. I didn't know this was going to be actually like question filled. I'm mostly doing this to test out StreamYard because of some personal endeavors that I'm going to be doing in the next couple of weeks, which you guys will find out about, and JD probably already knows about. But yeah, I'm super pumped. So thank you. But Mr. or M. Drovel says, smartest picks at 26 and 36, assuming your rankings are what actually happens on draft night. I don't think my rankings are what's going to happen on draft rank at all. I think there's a couple of people that I have like entirely too high that I know are not gonna be there or going to be there late, right? So I think the smartest pick at 26 is somebody that's going to fall. Most likely somebody like Andrew Cristall, because I don't think he's going to go top 15 because there's just a glut of really, really good players in the top 15. And I think because of his size, his profile, how he approaches the game, I think he's going to fall. So he's somebody that if you're trying to get a high skill guy who might hit as like your top line guy later, 26, 36, where generally you're picking for a safer pick, a safer option, a bottom six guy or a bottom pairing guy. Cristall is like not a bottom pairing guy or a bottom six guy. He's like your prototypical boomer bust player. And he's the one that's going to be available. Maybe somebody like Riley Height will be available too. I think he doesn't have as high of a ceiling as Cristall, but he's still somebody that's going to fall. Height, Cristall, Jaden Perron's going to go second round, despite being like mocked in first rounds by every public list you'll read. Jaden Perron's going to go second round. I have no doubt because he's like 5'8", and NHL GMs hate 5'8" players. So somebody, if you're looking for high swings, right, 26 and 36, or you feel like your first pick at 4, you've got somebody who you know is going to play in the lineup. Say we get Leo Carlson at 4. Rest of the draft, for me at least, is go nuts, right? Leo Carlson's going to play in the NHL. No doubt about it in my mind. You watch that guy, he's going to play. There's just such a floor with Leo Carlson that like rest of the draft, go nuts. Go pick your Andrew Cristalls, your Bradley Nadeau's, your Jaden Perrons, your William Whitelaws, your smaller skilled wingers that like, hey, if they hit, you've got a 30, 40 goal scorer kind of thing. They might not. They might pan out terribly. I think an example for Sharks fans is somebody like Daniil Gushchin was ranked 25, 26 by EP. Was ranked by Will Scouch in the top 25, I want to say, something like that. Because you look at him and you're like, his skill, amazing. Like but there's just a lot to go around it that needs to happen. And he's still working and he still has a chance to be like a top 9 scorer or so, but there's a lot that goes into that. So if you are a smaller skilled guy, you really need to be one of the best smaller skilled guys to make it. And I think Andrew Cristal is the one at 26 that could be the smartest pick. 36, Bo Akey. I think Bo Akey, if say your Simishev, your Gulyayev, your Reinbacher, ASP, Willander are all gone. I think Bo Akey is a good pick at 36. I think if Dragicevic is there, I think Dragicevic is a better pick, but only for his offensive upside. Bo Akey just has a lot of tools and also offensive ideas. He's like Tanner Molendyk, but a little bit more offensive leaning. So Bo Akey is a smart one at 36. But other than that, just the dudes that fall, or Jaden Perron if he falls to the second round. But that's not going to be what they're going to do, 100%. They're going to pick competitive skill, which is fine. Competitive skill is an interesting idea as a draft philosophy, right? It's like competitive skill is we're not picking grinders, but we're picking dudes who know how to play hockey, but also will hit people or will play aggressive and physical, right? So I think in a minute when we maybe get a couple more people in here, we'll talk about what dudes I think that the Sharks are going to target based on the competitive skill idea, because that's something that they quoted in their town hall recently, or I guess it was like a couple months ago, something like that. Yeah, I think. Thank you guys for being here, JD and M. Drovel, by the way. This is very nice. Definitely think at least one of the top 3 picks needs to be a D-man. I think it will be, for sure. I think it's going to be somebody like Tanner Molendyk. Or, and also, weirdly, I've seen a lot of mocks with Michael Robel around the top 3 picks, like 26 or 36. Which, like, there's always this, like, when you take over a team, you need to build from the net out kind of philosophy that new GMs kind of fall into a lot. And it's not the wrong philosophy if you get the right netminder, right? If you get a Vasilevsky, if you get a Jake Ottinger, or you get a Sorokin or Shesterkin or whatever, yeah, build from the net out, 100%. It's just about finding the right netminder. And is Michael Robel that netminder? I don't particularly think so, but goalies are, goalies, man. They're what they are. But anyway, one of the 3 picks will be a D-man. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think probably it's hard to say. It really depends on who falls, and how connected they are to the Russians. Like there's Simishev and Daniel Boot that are and Gulyayev, who are all 3 by skill alone first-round picks, but teams might not pick them at that level because of who they are. So we'll see how plugged in the Sharks are with their Russian scout, and see if one of them gets picked high. Because one of them falls to 26, Daniel Boot. Gulyayev probably is going to fall, and if he's there, I'd take him. Extremely skilled, and somebody that the Sharks don't have that kind of player. I mean, he's a little bit like Artemi Knyzev, but like the plus 12 version of Artemi Knyzev. He's like the handling guru if you took Knyzev and made him into a Gulyayev. But yeah, they need somebody for sure to push offense from their blue line. Players like Mukamadulin, Larocque, Havlid, Furlong. These are guys that are going to have probably some NHL/AHL success depending on where they fall. But I don't think they're going to be the same level of prospect that they need, basically. So anyway, why don't we do this? So we have I'm new to StreamYard, so this is my first time. We have the top 100. Let's share it. And also, this gives people a chance to not look at my face. Okay. The top 100. Where is Carlson ending up? Ooh, that's a good question as well. I don't think I have a specific answer for that question. Sorry, I'll fix this in a second. I have a few ideas of what teams might be interested in, some like crazy ideas. But my guess is somewhere like Florida or I would say Edmonton, but not them anymore, or New York Islanders, something that's like kind of unexpected and not very exciting that has a lot of want to be exciting, right? So Islanders are like the perennial idea of unexcitement, right? They're just, the Islanders. Good, not great, forever, for like the past 15 years. Ever since they got Tavares, right? So they want to push over the top, I imagine, before their GM stops GMing. And I think they have the assets to do it, at least in terms of picks and such. In cap space, if we take on a bunch of their like longer, 2-3 year contracts, I think Islanders is a good bet. Florida wants Carlson, but I don't think they have the pieces that people are going to be happy about if we trade him to Florida. There's talk about like Bobrovsky in trading, and I don't think that's going to happen for a multitude of reasons. Because Bobrovsky just proved that he can be a goalie that gets you to the Stanley Cup final, and the Florida Panthers have like a year or two on their window, and that's it. And Bobrovsky's going to be the one to take them there. That's my opinion. So I don't think they're trading him. And also, he's just so immovable from his contract perspective. Like maybe if they were super smart and really wanted to maneuver things, they would do it. But I don't think so. But there's been reports that they're very interested in Carlson. So maybe Florida, my like sleeper pick, my like ultra super secret pick is Seattle. And I think that's like here, I'm just putting it back up here, but that's like my ultra super secret pick is Seattle. Seattle has the cap space, the need, possibly the desire, and the pieces to acquire Carlson at like a not horrible retention rate for the Sharks, which is what matters to my career. Seattle needs a number one D-man. They have Vince Dunn, who had a breakout year, but I don't think people would argue is a Carlson level defender. Vegas just won a cup watching, or Seattle just watched Vegas win a cup, a new expansion team win a cup. And there could be some want there that their expansion team that just made the playoffs needs to add a few more pieces to really get them over the edge. They have cap space, and they have, multitude of picks and prospects that the Sharks would gladly take. So Seattle's like my crazy off the wall idea, but we'll see. I liked Buffalo as a destination for a long time, but people don't seem to be on that train. I don't know. It felt right. They also have a multitude of picks and prospects and cap space and a core that like is slowly rounding out to be competitive. It felt maybe right. Detroit's been mocked a couple of times, but they need forwards more than anything. They need a center. So I don't think they're going to go after big game hunting for Carlson. So anyway, that's my Carlson ideas. He's going to get traded probably after the awards. I wouldn't say before, but probably after. And it won't be that amazing. I'm pretty sure it'll be like we retain $2 million, $3 million, and we get maybe a first rounder. That kind of deal. Like I'm hoping that it's amazing, and it may be, but I don't think so. It's the kind of thing where we got rid of Burns for a third in Makaniemi, right? Like I think Greer just wants his own guys. Like Greer has a want to get his dudes, and that involves trading away Burns, Meyer, Carlson, Merkley, Weatherby, Balsers, Dolan, every single person that we could think of that might be important to the Sharks leaves. So keep that in mind. I think that's going to be what's going to happen. A little underwhelming. Let's start at the bottom of this list, right? For the top 100. We've had, 2 questions? So if anybody else has a question, I'd love to hear it. But if not, it's just going to be me playing around with StreamYard until I can see if this works. Okay. So a couple of dudes. So first of all, the draft ranking is this very large spreadsheet full of guys that I arrange based off of how I view them or when I view them. If I watch more than one full game, I'll mark them as a light green. And that means like me honing in or specifically paying attention to the player during that game. I watch a lot more than just the game, but that's me singling them out. If they're dark green, it means I watched at least 3 games of them in full. And if they're white, it means I've watched less than a full game or, mostly just highlight packages, that kind of thing. People like Noel Nord, Gavin McCarthy. Oh, it's going to pull that up. Anyway, so these are dudes that I know are around this area based off of how other people rank them or things I've heard about them or the limited time that I've watched them. But I haven't fully watched a game that I feel good about saying that they're a light green. Right? There's a lot of dudes that I've watched multiple times that end up in dark green. But my top 100, it also includes like 20 honorable mentions. And these are dudes that are guys that I feel like are interesting, but are not maybe going to get drafted or are going to get drafted pretty late. Or just have like one skill, right? Like Matteo Mann is, I don't know, somewhere in my draft ranking. I'm sure he's in the top like 200. I don't know where Matteo Mann is. There he is, 123. He's a dude that his skill is being 6'5" and 230 pounds, right? And when you watch Matteo Mann, his entire game is being 6'5" and 230 pounds. He's not very good at actually playing hockey. He's very good at being big on ice, on skates. So a team will draft him because he is big and aggressive and big. But even for a defender his size, he doesn't defend well at all. He doesn't defend the rush well. He doesn't, push people against the boards. He doesn't do the things that you wish defenders would be able to do. So he's an honorable mention because he has a skill. The skill is being 6'5", but very little elsewhere. So these are dudes that you pick in the 6th, 7th round because of their one skill. And that's what a lot of drafting or a lot of scouting is about, is finding one elite skill. And you cannot teach being 6'5". Will I think Matteo Mann becomes anything in the NHL? Probably not, but you never know. Emil Kushla is here as an honorable mention as well on my draft ranking. Emil Kushla is the opposite of Matteo Mann. He's 5'9", probably more like 5'8". He's very tiny, very small, very skilled and fast. But he, because of his size, is so limited, especially because his game runs through his hands. His game is built off of trying to challenge defenders one-on-one and make skillful plays around players. And a 5'9" player has a lot of issues with that outside of the finish U20. So he's got one skill. Wouldn't say it's elite, but it's good. And it's hopefully is something that might get him drafted, but it's enough to keep him on a watch list, right? Or an honorable mention list. Someone like Milik is one of the goaltenders on this list. Milik is interesting. He's really competitive. He's solid fundamentally. He has proven time and time again that he can stand up on his own and be a good goaltender. But he's somebody that like might not even get drafted this year, despite going to the Memorial Cup with Seattle and being pretty solid overall. The knock on him is that his style tends to be very conservative. His style of goaltending is not going to translate very well, and that his size is not going to translate very well. And it's still somebody that, because of his pedigree, how much he's succeeded, he's worth a watch. Thornton's an interesting one, Hudson Thornton from Prince George. I've watched this player a bunch, and every time I just can't get like a handle on Hudson Thornton. Like, he jumps up in the play a lot. He's very aggressive. He is skilled with the puck, but he plays more like a forward in the defensive position than anything else. He's also undersized and not very great defensively, but he is super skillful with how he sets up offensive plays and how he carries the puck in transition. So I like him. I'm putting him on an honorable mention list, but I don't think they're beyond his outrageous numbers that like he might not be the same player when he moves on to the next level. He seems like an AHL guy more than anything else. I think Jack Aiken, I think it's Aiken for the Providence Bruins is a good example to plug the P Bruins. But somebody that's got a lot of skill, pretty good skating, undersized, and just feels like he's going to be an AHLer for life kind of thing. All right. These last few, Deegan McMillan, Anthony Romani, and Alex Asadorian are all like low down picks that I'm interested in. We'll get to Scott Parker's in a second, but these three are dudes that have a lot of skill but have like flaws holding them back, right? Anthony Romani is pretty big. He's like 6 foot-ish or so. Very skilled with his hands, great playmaker, but he doesn't play the game with enough pace. He's very slow paced. He's not very physical on the boards, and he's got a slow acceleration, which hurts him getting pucks back. But I like his playmaking a lot. Alex Asadorian, super tiny, super skilled. Well, I'd say moderately skilled. Plays the game like it's junior hockey no matter what. Like, he's just super rush focused and trying to beat everybody around the outside and pass around the perimeter kind of thing. So interesting guy. Maybe gets picked this year because he had some good numbers after being traded to Niagara. The last one is Deegan McMillan, which is like one of my favorite sleeper picks. That's going to get picked like 6th round. Good size, 6'1", 6'2", poor skater, but scans constantly. Like, Deegan McMillan will constantly look before he goes to the puck to try and find where he's going to go afterwards. So if he's going to the corner, he's looking around. He's waiting to see where the next play is going to be. And he does that every game, every shift. And that's something that's hard to teach because most players, they put their head down when they go in the corner to get the puck, and then they don't look up, and then they're already pinned against the boards. And that's like 90% of junior hockey. And McMillan is not that player. He's immediately trying to move it along. He's got a good shot. He's got a good playmaking. His boots are terrible. He's so slow when he tries to accelerate. So, but I like him. Again, I'd pick him in the 6th or 7th because he's a guy that has room to grow if his speed improve a lot. Anyways, those are some honorable mentions, guys. All right, who do we got? Scott Parker says 3 realistic sleeper picks you want for the Sharks at 26-36. Who I actually want for the Sharks at 26 is who I got at 24, which is Lukas Dragicevic. Because I've talked about Dragicevic a lot because he's fantastic offensively, and somebody that people underrate because they don't understand his game, I think. It seems rude, but he just understands the flow of the game extremely well. Dragicevic knows where pressure is on the ice a lot. So if everybody's kind of overloaded to one side, Dragicevic will immediately spin past the other direction. He will try and find options that are open based off of how congested an area the ice is. And that's like what you want from a puck moving defender is knowing. It's like playing chess or whatever. You have to know where all the pieces are and move around them. And Dragosevic does that super well when he's playing that role as a passing defender. He's also very good on the rush. He jumps into play. His handling skill is excellent. He holds onto the puck at the blue line like an NHL pro does. He can maneuver around forecheckers very well. He's got tons of other issues that have been brought up before, but he's like one of the dudes that I really want somebody to swing on that understands what he needs to improve because he's so skilled. And he has such a high ceiling as a defender in this draft class where there's not a lot of high ceiling defenders. Like, look at the guys around him, right? We've got Dmitry Simashev, Tom Willander, David Reinbacher, and maybe Axel Sandipelika. I'd argue that ASP has a higher ceiling. But everybody else, Reinbacher, Simashev, Willander, it's like trying to prove who's the most likely to be a number 4 defenseman, right? Like, they don't have that like it factor on offense to move them forward. I personally think Reinbacher is the most likely to be the number 4 defenseman, number 3 defenseman, and that's why I have him at 8 because there is still value there, but the ceiling I feel like is low on these defensemen. And if you can get somebody like Dragosevic in the 26 or 36, if he falls out because of his poor speed and poor defensive abilities, I think it's worth it. That's like my pick. Who I think they're going to pick. Obviously, if Willander is there, they're going to pick him, but Willander probably won't be. But because he's going to Boston for next year, and they love Boston, they need a defender, they need a right-handed defender. It all kind of fits. They might even like trade up to get him because of everything that fits. But if he's there, they'll pick him, like pretty guaranteed. Moore might drop, which would be super interesting. Moore doesn't have like the stats that Smith did or Perreault or anybody else. But if he does, it would be interesting to see. Sleeper picks. Riley Heights got a pretty good ceiling. I could see that. Colby Barlow's going to get picked too early. Ritchie's going to get picked early. Hanzik hopefully will get picked early. I like Hanzik a lot. But if he's there, take him immediately, kind of thing. Jaeger? Would be an interesting pick. So you get somebody like Will Smith and you just go all offense and you go for Braden Jaeger afterwards. Solid. He's falling a lot in a lot of people's drafts because he came out like shooting at the Holinka and then kind of just like steadily did not prove that he's the number or in the top 15 of prospects for this year, but be an interesting one. If Simashev falls, pick Simashev at 26, right? You need a defender. It's fine. I have a lot of qualms about how high the ceiling is on Simashev, but it's still a good defender for sure. All right, who else we got? I'm also viewing the playback to see what the quality is as well. So that's what's happening too. Okay. So it's mostly me just like standing in front of the screen and talking about my list, which is kind of what I wanted. All right. Let's go back to the bottom 100 for posterity's sake. So if anybody wants to view this, Lord help them. But if they do, later on. So this last gray tier that you can see moving down from like 78 to 120 is the dudes that I know are very likely to get drafted, but for whatever reason are held down for a multitude of things. Lower ceilings than other players, or a lot of different flaws. The overagers are back here as well, just because by the nature of the draft, overagers tend to go in the third, fourth round. And every year, that's very true that somebody gets a good overager. For a quick aside, I watched a game of Rodwin Dionizio, and he was playing against Amadeus Lombardi, who is an overager that was picked last year. So he's an 082, but he's already been picked by the Red Wings. And just found it very funny that they were the two best players on the ice. And Shane Wright was on the ice too, but I just didn't notice him at all. and it seemed to come down to Dionizio and Lombardi being the dueling figures. But everybody kind of undervalues overagers in the draft. They tend to go in the third, fourth round. But there's a lot of dudes every year that are just really, really good and needed an extra year to prove it. And a lot of NHLers that were overagers and picked late for whatever reason. So finding those players and assigning value to them is important in a draft ranking, at least to me. So mine are Zadorov, Dionizio, Gajan, I can't ever say his name, the goaltender, Sukanik, the goaltender as well, Jeremy Hansel, the defenseman, Sturts, I can't ever say his name either, Gabriel Sturts, Hannes Hellberg, an interesting forward out of Sweden, Hugo Franson, one of my favorite defenders in this draft that doesn't get ranked anywhere and very likely won't get picked, but give him a year. I think he's got something there. Milik, Hudson Thornton, Oscar Asplund, Dylan Ernst. There's value in the overagers. That's all I'm trying to say is basically that. But in the gray tier here is where we have those overagers, as well as some goaltenders that are gonna get picked around 60s to 90s or 100 or so that have value too. So in this tier, we've got dudes like Ethan Miedema, Kerry Terrence, a couple OHLers, Joey Willis, who are Miedema and Terrence have interesting NHL qualities. Willis is more like an overall good player that has some qualities to him, but not nothing specific, right? Willis is just very good on the boards. He's very aggressive, and he's very skilled at getting the puck back and a decent playmaker. And that's kind of it. Miedema's got some great handling skill, mediocre-ish feet, okay feet. But misses passes a lot, doesn't have great vision. And also just has very low pace. That's the problem with Miedema. But I like him based on being a 6'4" guy with great hands. It's kind of when do you bite the bullet and take him kind of thing. Strathman, Karpovich, Burns, Carter Southern, Allen, Bertucci, Sturbeck, Minetian are all the defensemen in this draft, or this range that have NHL projectable qualities, but something's missing. Cameron Allen cannot make a decision with the puck to save his life, and it was shown at the U18s that he can't do that. He, every time he received the puck, didn't know what to do with it, and then would panic and then lose the puck constantly. And that's a really, really, really bad thing for a defender, is to not know what to do with the puck when you get it. That's the number one thing that they do, is know where to put the puck when they get it. So it was just a really poor tournament. And then I went back and watched some of his tape, and it was just as bad. He's just not great at knowing what to do with the puck. He's got other projectable qualities, good skater for his size. He can be physical, but does not know what to do with the puck. That's Cameron Allen. So maybe he develops it, maybe he doesn't. So that's why he's at 84. Southern offense isn't really all there. But he likes to rush the puck. and he likes to gather the puck up off the boards and then go the other way with it. So there's value in that in a 6'3" defender because it's like one skill that's pretty good, and you can try and round out the rest of his game. And he's physical, and I like him overall. He's a very interesting guy, has a late round swing. Spurback, Bertucci, Menedian. I watched the game of Bertucci today, and I liked him. He's just kind of boring and simple. So there's value in that too. He's also a late birthday, lanky, pretty decently skilled guy. There's some value there. I think he'll get picked in the third or so. Just doesn't have that standout kind of skill. Mededian also, his standout skill is that he's really good at gathering the puck along the boards in the offensive zone, like pinching and then heading to the middle of the ice with it and then shooting. That's like his textbook play in some way or another, is getting it from the boards, cutting the middle of the ice, and then shooting and causing havoc. That's like classic Mededian. Pretty good at it. That's like his whole offense, though. And there's some other things that are interesting with him, and he's pretty solid defensively, but a little undersized. So that thing is just basically lower floor or lower ceiling guys, or guys with like one or two skills that are projectable, and that's it. But may go higher than I've got them ranked anyway. The next tier is this darker gray tier. I'm going to take a sip of martini because that's what I'm going to do. Because I've been talking for like 30 minutes. Because I need more questions, guys. I've got like 4 or 5, which is good. I appreciate it. But if you've got anything else, shoot them at me. Anyway, the darker gray tier is dudes that have likely bottom 6 NHL futures, and they're really likely to meet that. Which is still very valuable in a draft if you get that and develop it. Or dudes that are productive, but I don't think are particularly impressive despite their production. Or just smart dudes, like guys that are smart but don't have a lot of the other qualities of an NHLer that make them complete, right? So Adar Sunayev, really interesting player. He has a very poor skating stride and stance. He's very wide. He's got great hands, a great shot. It's really hard to assess how much impact he can have on an actual hockey game watching him in the BCHL, because his team is so good that it doesn't feel like a real hockey game. But I like him. He's got skill. He's a good swing for a team late in the third or fourth. But he might go a little higher than that. Gibson is an interesting one. It seems like your prototypical bottom pairing defenseman in the future. Like Vegas just won with like 6 of those dudes, so not really, but a guy that's big, knows what to do with the puck, and doesn't have much offense other than that, but can still make a good first pass. Kumbalainen, big guy, good center. Seems like if you watch the Sharks, like a Dylan Gambrell type to me. I think okay at everything, but not great at one thing. But smart and decent and can win you face off. So like a fourth line center kind of guy is what I think. Loshko is one of my favorites as like a not a sleeper, but like a guy in the third or fourth that people should consider. Or if you can get him later than that, because he plays in the queue and he's Belarusian. So he might fall a little bit. Loshko is like one of the better defensive centers in this draft. And people don't recognize it, I don't think. He just always is like scanning for where the play is going, and in the neutral zone breaks up more pucks. And I looked this up on Mitch Brown's Patreon. In the neutral zone breaks up more pucks than any other CHL forward, based on their tracking data. And also that's kind of what I noticed about him first, was just that he breaks up pucks in the neutral zone like crazy. And is very involved in the play defensively. He's listed as a right winger on here and on a couple other sites, but I've watched him play center for like 10 games this year, and he did great. I think he's actually a really good defensive center with Good hands, good passing ability, and room to grow. Good size as well. A little like mediocre skating, could improve. Lipinski is bigger. His hands are poor. He loses the puck very frequently. But he's aggressive. He gets on the boards, forechecks. He seems like your prototypical third, fourth line grinder kind of guy in the future. Big, but a fast guy and decent skill. And if you give him enough space, he can maybe create a goal off you. That's kind of my read on Lipinski. Wahlberg, similar to Kumpelainen, but a little bit better. Probably a little bit low on this list actually, but decent everywhere, not amazing in one spot. Cowan, Petrie, Lind, Pinelli are all CHL guys that have interesting qualities. Petrie and Lind are aggressive and good checkers. Decent sized guys for that as well. Cowan and Pinelli are more like your skilled winger guys, both listed as centers, but I think they're wingers. Can carry the puck really well. They're smart dudes. Pinelli makes some really dumb decisions with the puck a lot and can throw away plays to nobody and also just overhandles, but he's got a lot of skill for a smaller guy. Raykop, I've never liked Raykop, but I recognize his skill, especially as a 6'1" good skater with, decent skater with a great shot. Every time I've watched him, I've just been a little unimpressed, though. That's kind of like my read on Raykop. Mukhanov. I love Mukhanov. Like, he must also take pucks off players in the neutral zone and the defensive zone more than like most forwards in the NHL. Just based on when I watch him, I really like Mukhanov, but he's just so small. He's just so tiny, and it's really, really hard to place him in the NHL at that size. Like, and I hate to be the size queen, but like he's really small. He's quick. He's a little choppy. He's a very hard worker, though, and he's going to make a team happy. But I just don't know if it's going to be at the NHL level. And that's what sucks. Maybe he will. Maybe. But I don't know how far it's going to carry him. He's very small. Theo Lindstein's a very safe pick at 64. If you get Theo Lindstein, he might play NHL games for you. Doesn't have much offense. Rykov. Super interesting dude. Got injured. And he's got good speed. He's got great hands. He can make plays off the boards very well. He's engaged defensively. He's got a great wrist shot. I put the comp as Cogliano for him. If you ever watched Andrew Cogliano, just very quick, smart, defensively oriented winger with some good shooting skills. That's kind of like Rykov for me. Nothing elite, but good is a good way to put it. Also, anybody has questions, now they're up to 3 viewers, or maybe even 4 viewers, which, you know what? Thank you, guys. You can put them in the chat, and I'll read them. Because I'm just going off right now. Oh, okay, I got one. Gulyayev or Dragicevic, or do you think Gulyayev is gone by 26? I think Gulyayev is likely to be gone by 26, more likely than Dragicevic is. I have Gulyayev ranked after Dragicevic, but I think both are risky. I think you would have to sell me on either player. Dragicevic is, I'd say, and this seems dumb because people will constantly say that he doesn't play an NHL projectable game, but I think he's got a more projectable game than Gulyayev. Gulyayev plays hockey like it's junior hockey and super great at it, but that's it. Dragicevic plays at least the offensive game like it's the NHL. And he has a lot of fallback things if he can be smart enough to develop those things. So I'd pick Dragicevic, but I recognize that there are arguments for either one. And both were insanely productive in their draft years for a defenseman. Gulyayev, one of the most productive MHL defensemen in a long time. And Dragicevic had a record-breaking point streak and most productive WHLer. So both of them have very high offensive ceilings, just lots of flaws elsewhere. What else we got? All right. So we were at mid-60s or so. Mukhanov, Lienstein, Danny Nelson. I like him. He's a good playmaker for his size. He wasn't very productive this year, but he was also behind like a freight train of a top line for the USNTDP. So can you fault him for being a little unproductive? Not really. Scoring effects and all that. I mean, his production's going to be lower, but he's just kind of like he flashes in spurts. He's very inconsistent, right, with his offensive flashes, and I think that's the biggest thing. But he's got size. He's got decent feet, great handling, great playmaking. So I'd pick him. Mijatovic, Charlie Stramel. This is probably one of the lower Charlie Stramel picks, but I don't like him. I would struggle to pick Charlie Stramel at 60. I think, obviously, if every one of the 59 above him were gone, I'd pick Charlie Stramel, I think. But he just doesn't impress me, ever. He's like, his decision-making is so poor when he gets the puck. Even though he can get the puck, he doesn't know what to do with the puck. And he will just throw it away and provides next to little offensive game from that. So what does he play at the next level other than puck getter? That's it, I think. And maybe that works, but I just don't see it. There's a lot of good forwards in this draft, and some team is going to pick him like 29th, and he's going to be your Jonathan Beecher of the future. So I don't know. It gets the puck back. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe next year Charlie Stramel's amazing, and I feel like I'm eating my words. But I just watched him a couple of times, and I just don't really get it. So, and I recognize he was really good last year, but just never been my guy. Mania could go a little higher. And Bruce Devitz, Hunter. Both of them are skilled defensemen that have good upside, but parts of their game are not very refined to say that they're going to make it next year as refined players, or 2 years from now, or 3 years. Hunter makes some good decisions. He's very smart, but there's nothing that's super stand out about him. But enough that he's in the gray tier the dark gray tier rather than the light gray tier. He still has an offensive ceiling in the NHL. Just has to get there. Mania is just inconsistent, but it's exciting, as you might expect by his name being Matthew Mania. But he is exciting. All right, we are almost there. No, I don't want to replace that data. Stop it. Denver Barkey is kind of like Mukhanov. Same size, aggressive player, smart though. I really like how smart Denver Barkey is. Like, he knows how to forecheck better than most 6'4" dudes in the OHL. And he can get under sticks really, really well. It's just the same problem with Mukhanov, where that gets you somewhere, but doesn't get you to the NHL. Maybe, but and he's also very skilled. He's got great passing ability, and there's a chance there for Barkey. Just has to meet it. If you look at Unger Sorum, he's 5'10", 5'11", decent sized, very good hands. He makes some creative plays to advance the puck, which is what I like about him the most. Is that he is always thinking about how to transition really well. He like bounces pucks off the boards. He bounces pucks off like the player in front of him back to himself and then back off the boards kind of thing. He just like a really good keen awareness of where the puck is at all times, and good handling, good hands, great playmaking. Just needs to put it all together, to be honest, and be a little bit more physical, I think. Improve his shot as well. If he does those, there's definitely a player there that could be in this dark brown tier instead. Noah Dallin Nielsen, I just don't get it. Like he's really productive, but this is like the eye test doesn't fit for me. Noah Dallin Nielsen, he's another one that eye test might not matter, and he's productive because he's just really good around the net and got great hands. But I don't know. He seems a little selfish at the J20 level, and I never really got it. But maybe I'm wrong. And maybe later on somebody else is more high on him and picks him in the first or the second. But never been my guy. All right, we're into the dark brown tier. Again, unless anybody has any other questions, I'm going to check real quick. Nice one with Scott Parker. Thank you for the questions. We're going to go to live chat. Okay. This is a lot of talking, but here we are. Okay, dark brown. Dark brown guy, like the dark brown tier or the dark orange tier, is the tier where there's our first round fallouts. Like a lot of these guys might get picked in the first, or dudes that I think have enough well-roundedness or a specific skill that can take them high. That's the dark brown tier or dark orange tier. Ooh, somebody said, sorry, I'm late. Do you think Hobble will be worth taking that high? How high do I have him? I have Hobble at 38. I suspect that based off of the dearth the right word? Lack of super high-end goalies in the first and second rounds, that Hobble is going to be taken first, and I think in the first round. Just based off of trends and goalie size. If you look at this year's playoffs, dudes like Akira Schmid and Aiden Hill kind of made headlines for being like perennial okay goaltenders, and then stood on their head and were awesome behind big defensemen. The art of goaltending is turned into who could be really big and play in a good system. And Robble was so good at the U18s at doing that NHL GMs and scouts are going to say, I want that guy. And they're going to pick Michael Robble because he's 6'6". He's very athletic and he's very skilled and he realizes how to play a position well. But I think he's going first round. There's just nobody that's like Michael Robble with that kind of ceiling around him. So would he be worth it at 38? I think so. Is he worth it at 26? I don't think so. I think there's still going to be higher end forwards that are going to be available. So I would pick him with the Sharks' 36th pick, I think, if they've gotten a forward and defenseman that they're happy with and that I would be happy with. I would pick them with the 36th pick, but I don't think he'll be there. I think he'll go like 31 or 32. Or to like Colorado, because apparently Colorado is interested in him, and why not? They do need a goaltender of the future, and it's going to be Michael Robble going first. There's other goaltenders like Bjarnason, Trey Augustine, Fowler, Damian Clara, Gajan, I can never say his name, Sakanik, Helnemo, Scott Ratzlaff, all of which are going to go in the top 100, probably. Well, I wouldn't say that. I will say Thomas Sakanik might not even get drafted. I would draft Thomas Sakanik, but he might not get drafted. So, but after like the first goalie goes, which is going to be Michael Robble, the next 4 goalies or so are going to go within that second, third round, whatever team needs a goalie or has multiple first round or second round picks. Like I think Detroit has like 3 or 4 second rounders. So I think they're going to pick a goalie. They'll probably pick like Trey Augustine. I don't know. Vibes. I feel it in my bones, Annie. That's what I think about that. But Mark Robble is a good goaltender and somebody that is still a good pick. Thank you for the question. That's really helpful, Maxwell. Does anybody else have any questions for now? Because we are moving down the list. We are almost there, guys. I'm going to take a break for a second and wait. We have 5 whole viewers. Oh my gosh. I'm really pumped. Thank you for being here, 5 viewers. And if one of you leaves right now after me saying thank you to you, I feel like a shame on your house and your shame on your cow. But thank you, guys. All right. So let's get back to the dark orange tier here. So dark orange tier, like I said, dudes that have a middle 6 likelihood, dudes that might be like bottom 2 pairing likelihood, that I think are going to be picked around the second round, but maybe first round. So starting at the bottom, guys like Caden Price, Oliver Bonk, Etienne Morin. Caden Price was just inconsistent this year, and also just sometimes unnoticeable. I'd watch him and just would not be impressed with much of what he did, but he does have a good defensive mind and he knows how to break pucks out. He's a good skater and there's a lot there with him. He's just very young and needs time, but there is enough there to say that he could be like a decent puck moving defenseman. Oliver Bonk is going to get picked like 27th or maybe 26th to the Sharks, and I don't agree with it, but I understand why he's going to, because he fits the profile of his size, handedness, and demeanor. But I think he really is like a bottom 2 pairing defenseman. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just never saw the dynamic offense with him to place him anywhere higher than like 40s or 50s. Would you rather Sharks trade down from 4 for an extra first, but likely miss Smith or Michkov, or trade down from 26 for extra seconds? Ooh, I'd rather trade down from 26. I think they need to get Smith or Michkov in this draft. 100%. I think in my own ranking, I have dudes like Zach Benson would be the only other one that I would consider, but I don't think the Sharks would consider him. And I don't like, he's kind of like your better William Eklund in a way, is what I see Zach Benson as, just a little bit smaller. But he's just a better William Eklund. He's fantastic on the boards. He's just very good at playmaking. He's has eyes in the back of his head kind of thing, and a complete hockey player in terms of his handling, playmaking, and physicality. So I would consider Benson if he falls, maybe. If they knew for some reason he's going to fall to like 10, and they can get an extra first, yeah, I'd do it. But I think they need one of Smith or Michkov or Carlson in this draft. Like, bar none. I think they need it. And the other guys in this tier is a little bit lower for me. But we'll get there. So is your mind what holds Bonk back compared to guys like Akey and Cagnoni? Yeah. Bonk and Akey have similar defensive floors, I think, or ceilings. Akey is a very good rush defender, and I think Bonk is an okay rush defender. Bonk is a little bit more physical and is a better end zone defender than Akey is. But Akey has and they're not too far apart on my ranking, like 10, 12 spots. But Akey has really, really good handling and feet combination, and just doesn't realize how good those combination of skills are just yet. So I think once he realizes that he really can push play with his handling and his playmaking, that he's just going to hit a higher ceiling than Bonk will offensively. But I think Bonk might have a higher defensive ceiling. But I still like Bonk. He's just not the guy that I want to pick when there's other players above him. Cagnoni is small, but he's just very smart with the puck, and he's like he just always is pushing play offensively, to the point where it's hard for me to hold him down on lists just because of how much he can affect offense as a defender. And I've always liked that about defenders, recognizing that he is small, but he reminds me of like a Sam Gerrard type in the future. And I think he can get there. And people will point to his size and say that he's not likely to get there, but I think he can. He's very smart, very skilled guy. Started watching at 4:30, so might have missed intro and backgrounds. What is your background? How do you scout the players? Any other inputs or influences? My background, I started following Sharks hockey, like, I don't know, like when I was a child, as a fan. And then 2015, 2016 or so, I started watching junior hockey, just as a interesting project or to try and get better at scouting players, because I was always interested in the draft, for like 10, 15 years. And then I started making notes and I started to develop what I like in players. And then after that, I eventually started a website, half-wallhockey.com, where I post a lot of scouting reports and the ways that I evaluate players. I eventually sent that to Shang Peng, who does writing for San Jose. Well, he is the owner of San Jose Hockey now. He writes for NBC for the Sharks and got hired by him to write about Sharks prospects. And I'm kind of just getting started in terms of what my amateur scouting career is like. But I'm excited. How do I scout the players? I guess it kind of breaks down into I like to view players in the archetype of what kind of player they can be, and how likely they are to reach that kind of player. I think the NHL is, outside of your superstars, very archetypal. I think there are skilled puck-moving defenders. I think there's physical defenders. I think there's your prototypical bottom-pairing defenders. I think there's your puck-rushing defenders. I think there's your fourth-line grinders, your defensive stalwarts. I think there's your skilled wingers, your two-way forwards. I think there's so many archetypes in the NHL is what fascinates me about scouting, that these roles need to be filled, and players will naturally gravitate towards an archetype, or they won't, but either way, that's what makes or breaks their success. From a Sharks perspective, to give you an example, there's a player they picked in the first round in 2020, Ozzy Weisblatt, who was picked as kind of like a transition guy, as a skilled winger with lots of hands and speed. But he was good in his draft year at doing those things, but never developed a true standout skill in it, and then has slowly fallen back into a more of a pesty role kind of thing. And I think he has actual value there. But I think the interesting thing about scouting is, like, he was probably not billed as a pest or billed as a hitter. He was billed as like a skilled winger. But if you watch his tape, he's got a lot of those elements. And that's what's fascinating about scouting for me, is finding those elements of players that fit in certain roles. And that's how I rank as well, is why I rank these players, is how likely they are to fit whatever role they could fit, right? It's like Mukhanov, despite being a really skilled back checker and very aggressive and can hit people, as well as Barkey, who is very physical. I don't know if that's the role in the future. I don't know if it can be, based on their physical limitations. So that's why they get lower down, even though they're really, really good at that. And a lot of people will recognize that they're really, really good and really aggressive, and they have a great motor. And you can't just rank them 25 because of that. There has to be a balance. But there's also the extreme end, where people will say Barkey and Mukhanov are never going to make the NHL. And that's not true. A bunch of players do, despite their size. So you have to find a balance, in what kind of role they can play. So that's my philosophy, is all of these tiers are based off of the likelihood to fill a role, right? Or they're just so high ceiling that I have to put them high. even if their likelihood to fill that role could be lower. That's kind of my drafting philosophy, I guess. Thanks for streaming. Any comment on the limited number of smaller players who actually make the show, since many cannot grind it out at the tail end of the roster? Yeah, that's like the thing is, like, if you look at the number of small players who, like, there's small players who play in the NHL but don't play more than like a few games or a few seasons. But there's smaller players that make the NHL and actually make an impact are dudes like Marchand and Braden Point and dudes that like have such a skill level that you can't ignore it. You can't deny it. So that's always important when evaluating small players, is if they have that, you still got to put them high, even if you're worried about their size. It's tough. Like in this draft, maybe Cristal has that skill level just because his offensive mind is great. But he doesn't have the skating or the well-roundedness of his game to really say, well, he's the next Braden Point. Because Braden Point, despite being the same size and maybe the same level of skating as a draft eligible, was just very skilled at forechecking and getting under player sticks. That, like, he translated that skill to the NHL plus his offensive mind, and that's why he scores 80 points a year. But it's hard to project somebody like Cristal to that level. I still have him high because the offensive ceiling is so high I can't ignore it. But it needs to be a conglomeration of all of the factors that will make him an NHLer. Because a team could put Cristal on the wing on the power play and he might score 40 points, but he's also going to be like a minus 38 at the end of the year. So you have to factor those things in. Somebody like Stankoven is a good example. Like, if you ever watched Stankoven play in the WHL, Stankoven's like a friggin' bull. Like, Stankoven he's small, but he will run over 5 people and then also body someone in front of the net and then score. He's just a bull. He doesn't stop, and he has that level of skill plus being a bull that Stankoven's probably going to make the NHL, despite being tiny. And I think that's a good model, is trying to find a aggressive, skilled winger, and also not applying the reverse logic, right? Not like saying, well, I think because Barkey is a good example. He is skilled and he is aggressive, and you could eventually just be like, oh, no, he's small, he won't make it. But like, he is also that like mode of like, has a good motor and has some skill level on the boards to maybe make it. So still pick him, right? But just don't like go nuts and push all your chips in that he's going to make it, but still pick him. Anyway, I caught a few Sharks first season games. Dang. I didn't. I think I first watched Sharks games in 2002. So not first season for sure. I once defeated a man who had a samurai sword with a hockey stick. Sounds like your namesake is living up to that then. All right, let's get back to the orange category here. So orange category, guys like Nick Lardis, William Whitelaw, Bradley Nadeau. Where is he? I know he's around here. No, Bradley Nadeau. All have excellent shots. All are scoring forwards that have a chance to play. And I think one of them will likely pop off and be like a Marchessault type goal scorer or whatever. It's just which one, Maybe Lardis would probably be possible. But Nadeau has such a good shot and so much skill. It's just really hard to see outside of his team how good he is. But he's very good. I think he's one of those like sneaky first rounders that can do crazy things at the next level. Cataford, Gauthier, Alex Cernak, Felix Nielsen, all are really, really, in my opinion, really good bets to make the NHL in some capacity. They are good sized, they're aggressive, they're good forecheckers, they're smart players, they can connect plays really well, they have some level of skill offensively. I've rated Felix Nielsen the highest because I think his playmaking skill and his ability to see players through traffic is the highest of those dudes. But even I still recognize that he's probably like maybe a third liner, maybe a second liner on a good team. But like these guys are the guys that you watch them and I feel like they know how to play an NHL style game, whether or not they're, and that has value because the team will want to have an NHL player out of their second round pick. So Lenny Hameneho is another example as well. Just really good net front, simple offense. His puck control isn't great. He loses the handle a little too often, but he's involved. He's got good skill level. Little slow acceleration, but another example of a guy that probably is going to play NHL games. You know, one of them might pop off. My bet would be Felix Nielsen, but we'll see. Lardis tested very well last week. He really did. He blew away a lot of the physical testing, and it's kind of like just like a tale of two seasons for Lardis. Like he got traded and then was just on fire. Every time I've watched him, he's just hammering power play goals, and you know that has value too. He's a great shooter. I like McLardis. And there still is a bust factor though, so I won't say that he's gonna make it, but I like him a lot. Grayson Sachin, high skill level, similar to Jaden Perron, similar to Luca Pinelli, similar to Madovic and Cohen. Guys that are skilled wingers that I think Sachin's listed as a center, but probably wingers that can transition the puck. One of them might pop off and be a good NHLer, or two of them. But I have Sachin the highest ranked because I think he's the smartest and most well-rounded. Could Enstrom be a 2C? Absolutely. I have Enstrom at 40. I really like David Enstrom. I was like, whenever I would watch Team Sweden, I would circle his name as one of the guys that stood out as just very smart and effective, and his size is impressive, and he's got really great hands for his size as well, really soft hands. I think in some ways reminds me of the Sharks pick Philip Bistad, just because he's big, hasn't put it all together yet, but you can see the workings of everything. I think Edstrom is more of a dump and chase kind of guy and net front kind of guy than Bistad is. Bistad's more of like a puck carrier in terms of how he generates offense, but I really do like David Edstrom. I think he could be a 2C, but it would be like his maximum ceiling, I think. And it's I'm not going to say it's like impossible, but it's definitely there. He scored well as well. He was impressive every time I watched him at the J20 level too, with Frölunda. So, like, Frölunda had an interesting team because you'd watch like Otto Stenberg, you'd watch Edstrom and Nordauer Nielsen all on the same sheet of ice at the same time, and probably 50-60% of the time I'm most impressed with Edstrom. So that shows something at least. But I still put Otto Stenberg higher because I think Otto Stenberg's ceiling's a little higher in terms of his offensive skill set. And when he's on, he's really, really good. Do you use any publication to help round out your coverage? Like do I watch anything or view anything? Yeah, I pretty much absorb NHL draft content like it's a, smorgasbord. I follow. I go on Elite Prospects and I check their guides all the time. FC Hockey's Guide, the Black Book. I have all of these books. I think in terms of scouting, it's good to get your own opinion and view your own eye, and then there's still value in checking yourself, right? Like, if in my brain, I'm like, this guy's a really good shooter. And then I view a bunch of guides that say he's a really poor shooter, there has to be a reason why my brain did not anticipate that discrepancy. And I try and reconcile it because that's the only way that you get better at this is trying to find your own faults, right? So I have to check myself in terms of the guides. I like to form my own opinions though, and I don't want to put words that aren't mine on my draft guides. But yeah, I have to check myself in some way or the other, and the only way I can do that currently is with other people's work. So, but everybody that is on this list that's light green or dark green, I've watched full games of, because it's the only way that you get better as well. Is if you pick a highlight package, you'll never get better at scouting. If you just watch highlights, it doesn't do anything. Highlights they're almost useless. Like they're cool for like getting hyped about players, but they're almost useless. The game scenarios, the way that they score those goals, they're almost useless. So you have to watch full games, and that's it. Which becomes a challenge because I don't have Instat. So the way that I watch full games is complicated. I watch through the CHL app. I watch on YouTube for the MHL and the VHL. I watch on Sven's Hockey, which does J20 and International Sweden, and also Finnish whenever Sweden's playing Finland. I watch on Hockey, which is like an illegal stream, just so that I can watch full games. And then I watch the tournaments. But you have to watch. That's kind of it. One day when I have Instat, it'll be easier, but this is where we are. All right, now to the light orange-ish, and then we will wrap up after the next couple of tiers. But the tiers get smaller as we go down, which helps with me talking a lot. These are dudes that I would solidly pick in the first round somewhere, because I think all of them have ceilings that put them as first-round talents. Starting with Jaden Perron, extremely smart playmaker, skilled center / probably winger, depending on his skill level at the next level. And also just he honestly the most like Braden Point is probably Jaden Perron that you'll see. So he might stick at center, but I think a team hopefully picks him in the first round, but if they don't, they should be first couple picks on second day because Jaden Perron is that good. Otto Stenberg, I wasn't impressed for a while until his tournaments, and then I went back and watched him, and he was just kind of a selfish player at the J20 level, but still his skill level's nuts, his handling is nuts, his offensive acumen and his ability to pass the puck is fantastic. So first rounder. Daniil Boot has grown on me a lot. He is big, but he uses his size effectively. A lot of dudes are big but don't. Like Quentin Musty is big but does not use his size effectively. Daniil Boot is just now learning how to body people with his size. And given his hands and his shooting talents, I think it can take him really far. He's like going to be a super high riser on draft day, like probably 14 or 15. I think I probably could have ranked him higher on my final list, to be honest. Gulyayev, Willander, Dragicevic, and Simashev are all in this tier. Good defenders, can pick them in any order that you would like. I think Dragicevic and Gulyayev have higher offensive ceilings than Willander and Simashev, but I've always been impressed with Willander whenever I've watched him. I've just never said that he's going to be like a top pairing defender no matter what. So, but impressed. Edward Shala. If I'm sitting here at 26 and I don't think I'm picking Edward Shala if there's any of these dudes available above him, and also maybe even some below him, like Gulyayev, I might pick ahead of him. I probably wouldn't pick Nielsen or anybody else. I might probably pick Boot ahead of him. I probably should drop Shala more, but I just don't like him as a player. So here's the thing. I watched Yuri Kulik last year like 5 times in his Czech league play because I was fascinated by Yuri Kulik. And he was aggressive and he shot a lot and he was like trying his best in a men's league, but wasn't doing amazing, but still trying his best. Then he went over to the AHL this year and just killed it, ripped it up, 50 points or whatever he had. And, he's probably going to play in the NHL. but he plays a game that's very projectable to the NHL, like aggression, shooting a lot, um, never giving up on pucks. Shala doesn't do any of that. He's not aggressive. He doesn't shoot a lot. He gives up on so many pucks. And he doesn't play on the boards well. He's a really good handler, great passer. Don't understand how he can get away with being so disengaged, I think is the way to put it. So maybe he makes me feel like an idiot next year when he comes over and he's also awesome like Yuri Kulik was, but I just see not the same player. And people keep comparing him like, well, look what happened with Kulik when he came over to the AHL. It's like, maybe, but I don't see it with Shala. Musty, Jaeger, Brindley, 3 different players completely. Musty, more of your playmaking winger, doesn't play with enough aggression for his size, but still good. And lots of skill as a playmaker. Jaeger is more of your shooter, little undersized, and had an okay year. Just wasn't like the dominant, I'm going to be a top 5 pick thing that people expected from him. But still a good player, good shooter. Brindley, like a bull in a china shop with also good handling skill and good shooting as well. Always in the slot, always looking for one-timers and everything. I like Brindley a lot. I have him ranked this high because I think even despite his size that, his motor's going to take him. Sky's the limit with him based on his skill level. Riley Height. I've come down on Height a little bit, but I still like his playmaking mind, one of the highest in the draft, in my opinion. Behind like Bedard and Smith, Cristal. I think Riley Height's got an excellent distributor's mind. There's like times when I know that Riley Height's trying to put the puck where he thinks players are going to be, and then they're not there. And there's also times when he's disengaged, which kind of hurts his draft stock. But Barlow, kind of like Jaeger, but just bigger and more developed and more physical, but just a really great shooter. And he's going to put goals in the NHL. Kind of like Philip Zadina. So maybe not the best comparison because Zadina hasn't made the NHL, but I feel like they're very comparable players. Hanzik, Gabe Perreault, Callum Ritchie. I love how many different types of players there are up here, but they all have like such projectable qualities to them. Gabe Perreault is like your ultimate play connector, like the guy that's gonna be between your puck getter and your puck shooter, like the guy that's in the middle is gonna get the puck to your shooter kind of guy. Just always in the right spot and always knows where to go with the puck. I don't think he's like an amazing passer. Like it's not really his passing like skill or anything. It's just his vision to know where to be, and his positioning offensively is amazing. I think there's value there as 15. Hanzik is your perfect combination of skill, speed, size, shooting, and physicality. That makes him like a top 10 pick all day, but this draft is a little high or a little tight up front. So, but I'd pick him 14. Matthew Wood has come up a lot for me. I think he was in like 21 or something before. I think he's still a very bad skater, really, really poor skater. He combines everything wrong about skating in one. He's got a poor stride. He rounds his back, so instead of skating like this, he skates like this with his back hunched over, which limits his power and limits his balance. His balance is very poor. He gets knocked off of pucks a lot. He's very choppy and up and down with his stride, so he skates like this instead of like this. He skates like this. And he's very slow. So all of it, and he still can't generate any power. So it's just really, really, really poor skating. Some teams can take him really high, but it's really bad. And he needs a skating coach like every day for years to fix it. Because at this point, he's playing in college with that that, and he's still doing very, very well, which shows you how much skill he has, because he really does have an amazing amount of skill, but just a very, very awful skater, which is not something new. You guys probably heard that a bunch. But and coming right up against him is Oliver Moore, the best skater in the draft. That's funny how that worked out. I didn't even realize that. Best skater in the draft is Oliver Moore, and that's kind of it. Like, I think he has a lot of defensive abilities and acumen and a defensive mind, but I think his hands are lagging in terms of how fast his feet are. He'll lose the puck when he's trying to wheel around the offensive zone, and I don't think his passing is like fantastic. His shot is fine, but not amazing. It's kind of like just very, very quick. Andreas Athanasiou has always been my comparison for him, but I think maybe a little higher ceiling than Athanasiou. Yeah, that's very fine. They're right next to each other. Stahl gets one higher just because his offensive ceiling is great despite his size and skating limitations. I think there's still possibly a top six winger there. So you take it and you hope. He'll get picked late though, probably 26. Axel Sandin Pellikka. I have my biggest concern with Pellikka is not his offensive abilities, because I think he's a good skater and he's very good at breaking the puck out, and he's kind of interesting in the offensive zone, and he can get the puck on net. My biggest issue is he doesn't defend very well, and his gapping up is terrible, and he will just skate backwards, and instead of actually trying to poke check at the player, just put a stick in the lane and kind of wait. And also, his size does not lend well to physicality in the corners at all. So it's kind of like your Erik Karlsson, to be honest. We'll see if he gets to that height of projection that Karlsson has. Dvorsky, Reinbacher, and Leonard, solid dudes. Every single one of these dudes is going to play in the NHL. I bet money on it. Dvorsky already shows that he understands how to play a 200-foot game and has some skill with it. And also when he's playing against junior level is just better than everybody else. So that always is a good sign when he's better than everybody else at the actual level he should be playing at. He might have struggled a little bit in the men's league this year, but he's still supremely skilled. Reinbacher, one of my favorite defensemen in this draft, despite a lot of like negativity towards Reinbacher, because the team is just going to be really mad they chose them at like 6. Like Arizona will choose him, and then everybody will be mad that Arizona picked Reinbacher and not like whoever's available. But I don't know. Reinbacher is really good. Just his biggest thing is his retrievals are the best in this draft for a defenseman. Maybe Simashev's a little bit better, maybe, but it's hard to know because Simashev plays against Russian children, and Reinbacher's playing against like German and Swiss men that have been playing hockey since they were like 4. And Reinbacher's doing it better than Simashev is, but that's my own little bias there. Reinbacher is just really good in the corners and can get the puck off anybody in the corner, and can skate out with it. I watched like full shifts of him in the Swiss league, and he'd be the one out of all of his 30-year-old defense partners to get the puck, skate it out, and then chip it down the ice kind of thing, and like would do that repeatedly and would get no credit for it because then he'd immediately skate off, and then the puck's already in the offensive zone, and then those dudes do something with it. He's the reason it got there, and it would happen repeatedly. So his numbers were good, but I think they could have been even better if he was like not just the best retriever and distributor on their team. So that's my Reinbacher opinion. I think he's got a great floor and ceiling. Leonard, I love Ryan Leonard. Great hockey player, skilled, great shooter, great placement of his shots. He's not inaccurate at all with his shooting, and very physical on the boards. He does all the dirty work for his line. And I think he's going to need a few years in college, but he'll end up being like a rock solid middle 6 winger / center. People will be happy with him. Mike Gear calls in sick. You get the call to 2 to draft. Who do you take at 4, 26, and 36 with your opinion of who could be available? He calls in sick. Oh boy. At 4. If I had assurances or I'd met with Mitchkov, I'd pick Mitchkov. Knowing that I've picked a skilled winger, I would not pick somebody like Kristall, despite him falling probably to 26. If I pick Smith, I'd probably pick Kristall as a skilled winger. But knowing I've got Mitchkov as a skilled winger eventually coming, at 26, I'd pick somebody. I probably want to round out my size profile and also I'd try and see if Nate Danielson is available. I'd want to get a center. Nate Danielson, maybe Stenberg, or I'd pick one of the defensemen available. If Simishev is there, I'd pick Simishev, just because I've already picked one Russian. I might have good contacts that I'm going to get a Russian. And if not, I'd pick somebody like Dragosevic. And then at 36, or Daniel Boot would be fun. Just round out my size profile. Mitchkov is tiny, and you're going to want a bigger player next. We see what happens in the 2020 draft when you draft all tiny players. Like maybe 1 or 2 will work out, but maybe not. And then you're stuck with a bunch of tiny players. So I would try and get some size. And at 36, so say like Mitchkov, somebody like Boot or Dragosevic, I'd pick Nielsen with the 36 pick. Somebody who's rock solid that I know is going to play, well, my opinion, know is going to play in the NHL and can play a 200-foot game. That's Felix Nilsson to me. Chernak is another one that's kind of similar, but a little bit higher playmaking skill than Nilsson. But yeah, I'd go Mitchkov, Dragosevic, Nielsen would be like my thing, because you're doing 2 swings there and then one guy who's going to play, right? Because Dragosevic might never play. Mitchkov might never play. You hope both of them do, and if both play to their ability, they're like your number 1 winger and your number 1 D-man. But like, or maybe number 2 D-man. But Nielsen would be your counterbalance to that. It's the guy that is going to maybe be a third liner, but you get him from this draft and hope. Musty is ranked high by elite prospects and scouts. What's holding him back for you? Yeah, I like Musty. There's times when I watch games of Musty and I just feel like I didn't understand why he did so well. Like he'll have like 3 points and I don't understand why. Good playmaker and great hands, but he's not very physical, and he doesn't have the type of. He kind of reminds me of Brandon Coe from the Sharks, like a way better Brandon Coe. But once you reach higher levels, you need to round out your game, even if you're a bigger guy, unless you are just supremely skilled, which I don't think he is. So that's why he's held on a little bit for me. But there's still a lot there. It's just you hope he rounds out his game rather than just trying to be the peripheral playmaker that he's always been, pretty much. Sold. Deal. Let's do it. Let's grab Mitchkov, Dragosevic, and Nielsen. If not then we'll do Will Smith. And you grabbed your center there. So then somebody like Daniel Boot, you get a big winger, right? So you grabbed your center, and then there's so many other winger options. You can even go Musty then. But both Musty and Smith are playmakers. Or you grab Will Smith and you grab a smaller skilled playmaking winger like Kristall in your 26 pick. And then at 36, you grab whatever defenseman is left out of this top group here. So somehow Simishev, Dragosevic, Willander, Gulyayev, Akey, Tanner Molendijk, somebody as a defenseman late at 36. Maybe not Cagnoni. Like I have him at 34, but I don't think I would pick him at 36, which is kind of dumb as a draft ranking. But you know what? This is my first public draft ranking, so we're coming up with stuff. We're trying it. So it's fun. At some point, we got up to 7 viewers, which is cool. I'm actually really excited about that. That's a cool amount of people to be here. We've been doing this for 94 minutes. This is amazing. Whew. All right, guys. I think we are almost to the end of it. We were at Leonard. These top 6 players are the best top 6, I think, in a very, very long time. Zach Benson, Will Smith, Leo Carlson, Matvey Michkov, and Killian Bedard. Benson was as high as 4 for me because Benson is everything you want in a hockey player, except for being 6 foot. That's not an exaggeration. He's everything you want, but not 6 foot. But I still think that he's going to be a fixture on a team's top 6 someday. Just going to take a little while to get there. But he's been the best player on his team for 2 years, despite his team being full of first-round draft picks like Matthew Savoy and Connor Geeky. He's been the best player. And he still is every time I watch him. Super smart, one of the smartest players in this draft. One of the best playmakers in this draft. And great on the boards, great forechecker. Steals pucks out as well. Just amazing results. So a team's going to get a good player wherever they get him, like at 8 or 9 or whatever. Smith, Smith, extremely skilled playmaking center, which the Sharks had for 15 years in Joe Thornton. He's not as big as Joe Thornton, but that's kind of what we've been clamoring for ever since Joe started the decline, right? So hopefully he turns into that. There's still some issues with his defensive play and his feet, which are fine, but not amazing. But he's so smart and he's so crafty and creative that I would pick him. Leo Carlson. It's hard you have to watch Carlson a lot to really appreciate his game. Besides the obvious being big and, being skilled, but he's very subtle with how he generates offense. And I think he's just developing. He's got extremely high ceiling. And if it wasn't for these 3, he could still be considered number 1 overall. He had an amazing season in Sweden. Matvey Michkov and Fantilli are in the same tier because I think both are superstar level prospects. Fantilli, aggressive, skilled, intelligent, great shooter, like will put his team on his back and try and win the game in overtime kind of feeling. And had an amazing season in Michigan, like fantastic. So I don't know, he's got a superstar level ceiling, and so does Michkov. There's a lot of comparisons with Michkov, and most of them are like, oh, he's Nikita Kucherov because he's Russian, and I'm like, that's fine, I guess. But I think I see Patrick Kane as my ultimate comparable. Great shooter, undersized, skilled playmaking winger with amazing hands and a super smart mind. So that's Michkov for me. Like Bedard is also compared to Patrick Kane a lot, but I think Bedard is more like an Austin Matthews or like just a better shooter than he is most other things. Like he's great at everything, but shooting is going to be his bread and butter. Whereas Michkov is still like a very good playmaker, and he's intelligent about the game of hockey. Again, this is all trying to pick, the most nitpickiness between Michkov and Bedard. I think they're both fantastic players, and Bedard is a better player. So that just goes to show you how good this top 3 is. And 4, 5, and 6 are not too bad either. They're just not. I think these 2 are superstar level. Bedard is like generational level, very, very good. And then these 3 are top 6 level, top line forward level. But could be wrong. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, guys. Unless you guys have more questions, I'll give it like 2-3 more minutes. But I've been yammering, and I'm mostly doing this to just try out StreamYard because I have some fun things coming up that you guys will learn about probably in a week. That has to do with me and San Jose Hockey Now. And I wanted to test out StreamYard. But we'll see. Anyway, Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I will see you next time.